this video I'll be ranking all the Pokemon starter designs based purely off their baby forms. Starting off we have Bulbasaur. I like Bulbasaur's design despite not being able to tell what it is. It's like a frog dinosaur thing with a seed on its back. The different shades of green work well together and the red eyes contrast nicely with those colors. Overall Bulbasaur has a pretty good design, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Next up we have Squirtle. Squirtle is one of my favorite Pokemon because it's the first Pokemon I ever used. I am gonna rate Squirtle's design as objectively as possible, but I am biased. I like how its design is based off of a turtle, and I think the color of its shell goes well with the main color of its body. Overall, I do think Squirtle has a really good design, so I'm gonna put it in A tier. Next is Charmander. I think Charmander has a really good design. I think the orange and tan color works well together, and I like the use of the complementary blue color for the eyes. I like the fact that it's based off of a salamander, and the fire tail is really cool. I do like Charmander's design, but I don't like it as much as Squirtle's, so I'm gonna put it in A tier below Squirtle. Moving on, we have Chikorita. I will say this design is a bit underwhelming. There's not really a lot going on here. There's only two green colors and they don't stand out that much. Its body kind of looks weird. The only thing I really like about this design is the leaf. It's an okay design, so I think I'm gonna put it in C tier. Up next we have Cyndaquil. I think Cyndaquil has one of the best designs out of all the starters and probably the best design out of the fire starters. I like how the blue color on its body complements the color of its fire, and I just think it looks really cool. I do think it's the best designed fire starter, so I'm gonna put it in S tier. Next up we have Totodile. Totodile's design is kinda derpy, but I like those kinds of designs. I like the fact that it's based off of a crocodile / alligator. And I think the red, blue, and tan colors work well for this design. Overall, I think it has a pretty good design, so I'm gonna put it in A tier. I think I will put it at the top of A tier. Moving on to the third generation, we have Treecko. I don't really like this design. I don't really like how it looks in general. The head looks weird, and I'm not a fan of these colors. They're kind of ugly. The only thing I like about this design is the tail, and that's it. I don't like this design, so I'm gonna put it in D tier. I can kind of see why people didn't choose the grass starters now for the first few games. I do think it got better throughout the generations though. Moving on, we have Torchic. I do feel like Torchic has a good design, and I like the fact that it's based off of a baby chicken. I do like the more cutesy designs for the starters as babies, so I think this looks good. The orange and yellow colors also work well together. Overall, I do think it's a pretty good design, so I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. Do I like it more than Bulbasaur though? Yes. Next up we have Mudkip. I love the fact that it's based off of Axolotl, and if it weren't for Mudkip, I probably wouldn't even know those existed. Let me know in the comments if you also found out Axolotls existed because of Mudkip. I like how Mudkip's design incorporates complementary colors with the blue and orange. It also has kind of a derpy design, which as I mentioned before, I love. Overall, I do think it has a really good design, and I would probably say it's better than the ones in A tier so far, so I'm gonna put it in the top of A tier. Can you tell that water starters are my favorite yet? Anyways, moving on to Generation 4. First up we have Turtwig, which is another design based on a turtle. I don't know why, but I do really like the turtle designs, and I feel like out of the grass starters, this is the best one so far. I like the green, brown, and yellow colors for this Pokemon. They're all pretty earthy colors, and that's very fitting for this Pokemon. I do think it's a good design and deserves to be in A tier, but I don't think it's above any of the ones in A tier so far, so I'm gonna put it in the bottom of A tier. Next up we have Chimchar. I don't really like monkey designs, so I'm not a huge fan of this one. I also don't really like the red eyelids or the hair. I think the hair is supposed to look like fire, but it kind of looks like poop. As far as what I like about this design though, I like the swirly thing on its belly and the flame tail. I think it's an okay design. There are things I like about it, but there's more things I don't like, so I think I'm gonna put it in C above Chikorita. Next up we have Piplup. I feel like Piplup may be one of the best designed water starters. I really like the penguin design, and all the colors work together really well. I also like the pattern it has on its head and its belly. I do think this is probably the best water starter design, so I'm gonna put it in S tier below Cyndaquil. Moving on to Generation 5, we have Snivy. I feel like Snivy is probably the best designed grass starter. I think what puts it above the other starters is you can tell its personality by its design. I love how it looks smug, and I also like that it's based off of a snake. I also think the fact that this thing here makes it look like it's wearing a coat is cool. I do think it's the best designed grass starter, so I'm gonna put it in S tier. I think I'll put it below Cyndaquil. I don't know why, but I really like Cyndaquil's design. Next up we have Tepig. I think Tepig's design is pretty good. I like the black and orange colors, and I don't usually like pig designs, but I do like how Tepig is designed here. I think it's a good design, so I feel like it should go in low A or high B. I think I'll put it in B because there's not a lot of Pokemon in the B tier. Moving on, we have Oshawott. I like Oshawot's design, but not as much as the ones up to this point. Its face looks kind of weird. It kind of looks like a snowman. I like the different shades of blue and the white. Those look good together. And I also like the shell on its belly. That's probably the coolest thing about this design. I like Oshawott's design, but not as much as the other water starters, so I'm going to put it in B tier below Tepig. Moving on to Generation 6, we have Chespin. I don't really like Chespin's design. The brown color I don't like, and the green looks okay, and I'm just not really a fan of how it just looks overall. I can't quite put my finger on why I don't like it. I just don't like it, like the way it looks, so I'm going to put it in D tier below Treecko. Next up we have Fennekin. I think Fennekin has a pretty good design. I think the orange and yellow colors go together really well, and I also like the tufts in its ears. It's a good design, so I think I'll put it in A tier. I think I'll put it below Totodile. Moving on, we have Froakie. I think Froakie has a pretty good design. I like that it's based off of a frog, and I think the bubble scarf thing looks cool. I also think the blue and white colors look good and is contrasted nicely by the yellow eyes. I do think it's a really good design, and I'm debating in putting it in the top of A or the bottom of S. I think I'll put it in the bottom of S. Now moving on to Generation 7. First up we have Rowlet. I like Rowlet's design, but there's definitely a lot of starters I like more than it. Its design is kind of basic, it's just round, but I do think the leaf bow tie looks cool. Overall, I think it's a good design, but not the best, so I'm gonna put it in B tier below Torchic. Moving on, we have Litten. I think Litten has a pretty good design. I might even say it has a pretty lit design. I always like designs based off of cats because I like cats, and Litten has one of my favorite color schemes, which is black and red. I really like its design, so I think I'm gonna put it in the top of A. Next up we have Popplio. Popplio is probably my least favorite starter out of any starter. It just kind of looks ugly to me. It looks like a clown, which I don't really like. The colors look okay, but it is pretty basic. Since it's my least favorite of the starters, it's going in the bottom of D. Moving on to Generation 8, we have Grookey. I think Grookey has an okay design. It's another design based off of a monkey, which, as I said before, I'm not really a fan of. I also think the colors look ugly, but I do like the stick and leaf on the top of its head, but that's about all I like. I mostly don't like this design, but there are a few good things about it, so I'm going to put it in the bottom of C. Up next, we have Scorbunny. I like Scorbunny's design a little bit. Generation 8 probably has my least favorite batch of starters. And out of the three, I do think Scorbunny is the best designed. I like that it's based off of a rabbit, but I'm not really a fan of bipedal humanoid Pokemon, so I don't like it that much. The white and orange colors also look good. I think it's better than C tier, but I like the ones in B better, so I'm going to put it in the bottom of B. Next up we have Sobble. I think Sobble has an okay design. I don't dislike it, but it doesn't stand out either. The blue and yellow colors go together well, and the overall design is underwhelming. Because its design is underwhelming, I'm going to put it in C tier. I like Chimchar a bit more, so I'm going to put it behind Chimchar. Finally, we have the last generation, and starting off first, we have Sprigatito. As I said before, I do like cat design, so I really do like this design. I think the different shades of green look good together and is contrasted nicely by its pink features. Overall, I think it's a very good design, so I'm going to put it in A tier behind Litten, mainly because I like Litten's color scheme better. Moving on, we have Fuecoco. Fuecoco has a very derpy design, but I like those kinds of designs. I like the red and yellow colors, and I also like that its face kind of looks like a skull. The stubby limbs make it look a lot more derpy, which I like. And finally, we have Quaxly. I like Quaxly's design. I like the kind of sailor design it has. I think the cap looks cool, and the duck design itself looks good. The blue and white colors also work together pretty well. I think Quaxly has a pretty solid design, so I'm gonna put it in A tier above Fuecoco. If you guys enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.